Aviation in times of turbulence, Corona, and its economical and political implications. Now, we're all very much aware of the current situation that COVID-19 has brought to the aviation, and I will a bit deep dive into that topic in this video about where aviation stands at this time. And together, we're going to be discovering the economical and the political implications of the same. My name is Julia George. I used to be a cabin crew for Qatar Airways for 10 years, and I am currently studying aviation management at Wildau Institute of Applied Science in Berlin. And I have attended a conference at my university where, along with 5 experts from the aviation industry, we spoke about this subject. I strongly recommend you to stay until the last minute of this video to find out what is happening currently and what is the view, what is going to be happening in future and how aviation will be recovering and getting away from this crisis. You might also want to hit the subscribe button and the notification button for the many videos that are coming. So let's start. So the topic that we first spoke about on the conference was how COVID-19 has affected the cargo sector in the aviation industry. What are the implications on the cargo sector? And we also talked how remarkable and interesting are those factors. Now, at this moment, the cargo load factors are quite high. And we can see that if we look at the last year in 2019, there is a clear increasement of the cargo load factors today in 2020. And most probably you are asking yourself, just the way I asked myself, how is that possible? And to get to the answer of this question, we first mentioned that at this particular moment, we are witnessing a dramatic decrease in the passenger air transport. Most of the work that is done, it's actually done online. People have been canceling their holidays and stuff like that. I have my classes at the university online, although we're supposed to be in Berlin. Now, what I have over here is a photo where you can see one passenger aircraft that actually has been converted to a cargo device aircraft. And this has been done due to the increase in the demand, the cargo demand. And this kind of work that airlines are doing has actually saved many airlines from bankruptcy because it has showed up as a profitable solution, a wise solution to stay and operate in the market in these hard times. Basically, what we can say is that the airlines have been tailoring their services towards different demands out there. In this case, we're talking about the cargo demands. What also makes this wise solution and its implementation so profitable is that at the moment, there is not enough cargo transportation capacity, and carriers that are doing that are raising their prices. And we have a very funny situation here. We have passenger jets being converted and being used for cargo purposes, and we have them operating. But on the other hand, we have pilots and we have the cabin crew sitting on the ground and being laid off for the simple reason we don't serve tea and coffee as a cabin crew, and we don't serve tea coffee to cargo boxes. And we have also a situation where we have a low fuel price. My understanding for this is that the airlines, not all of course, are actually doing their very best, and they will make good outcome of this situation. But please don't think that this is as amazing as it sounds, as amazing as I have said it, because I'm very sure that it's not like that. Airlines have their own struggles, but this is a way to stay, and as a way to stay, to operate somehow and run the business somehow, then I think that this solution is quite okay. Mentioning the cargo sector, one example I can share over here is that the medical equipment that is very much needed nowadays during the corona pandemic, let's say, the personal protective equipment, for example, the masks, the gloves and stuff like that. I'm not over here talking and referring to the rewashable masks that we often use, but to the ones that are for medical use, which are mostly made in Asia. So all that equipment that I have mentioned has somehow or has to be somehow transported and delivered worldwide. What also we have learned and talked about in the conference is that the vaccination campaign that is expected to happen will also be a factor that is going to be increasing the demand of the air transport, the demand in the air transport. Another thing we also must mention is that we face a dramatic cancellation of the aircraft orders. Airlines have ordered aircrafts, but they have canceled that, and we have that situation when we have a situation that I have mentioned where aircrafts have to be actually re-equipped to transport for transporting purposes. This high demand of the cargo transportation in the aviation industry is, in some studies that we have spoken about, is mentioned that goes up to 85%, and that is why it is important, along with this, that we have a growing awareness of the emissions that this is causing, and this leads to development of models where in the aviation sector there might be even new models being implemented, which will be which those models will be related to charging for emissions being caused and stuff like that. That is something yet to be talked about. The perspectives for the air cargo for the future, based on what I have mentioned previously, would be improving in this complex situation, which will be related to transparency of the energy that has been used, transparency of the emissions that are caused by air cargo, and modules being developed where all the airlines are going to be engaged together in a global level. There also will be definitely a need for more sustainable energy sources, more efficient routines. There will be a need for a better spread of those routines and more effective use of the air as a way of transportation. Ladies and gentlemen, we're all witnesses of something called an existential crisis that we haven't seen before in the aviation industry. Let's say last one after the Second World War, for example. But airports are facing huge existential crisis, as this is the result of an enormous decreased demand to travel both for business and for leisure. Mentioning the political implications, we are witnesses of governments across the globe, governments that are helping financially the airports and the airlines in these times of this existential crisis I have mentioned. Because if they don't do that, the airports can simply be shut down, of course, and national carriers or airlines will be bankrupt. Now, airports were not ready for scenarios like this. We were not ready for scenarios like this. What also is important to mention is that the presence of the traffic restrictions comes up from the government decision to the quarantine rules in many countries where they apply. Now, the numbers of flights also have been decreased by the airlines. This is all connected together, and all these and similar actions are actually contributing to the amount of passengers being dramatically decreased. What the industry has presented as a possible way to get out of this is being tested instead of being quarantined. Here I refer quickly to the antigen rapid test that is implemented at some airports. We spoke about this with Nithya Belani in our video related to the aviation news, where I have explained the trial that Lufthansa Airlines has done at some airports, which is part of the new normal testing. These procedures have already been practiced, and you can have a look in the video in the first episode to see what exactly we spoke about. And according to the experts, these procedures can be fully implemented somehow in spring 2021 or next year, April or May. We also should be aware that still a clear criteria for this test has not been established. Therefore, we can't be sure how sure these tests will be or how sure they are. The results are yet to be seen and to be evaluated. But one parameter we are very much aware of is that the places where people are gathering or the airports, we all know that they have been reorganized in order for us, the passengers, to feel more safe and to view the airports as place where we're gonna less be exposed to be getting the virus. Wearing a mask is a well-known standard alongside the distance between each other and stuff like that. All this is contributing to gaining that trust that airports and airlines are building at the moment with the passengers, with their customers, which is a process, as I have mentioned, and it requires a lot of action, a lot of modules and implementation of different standards. Now, with regards to the new normal, would a vaccination be a must? If you're asking me, I don't think so. However, I think that the passengers would have to present a test, perhaps an antigen test, that they are COVID-19 negative. That is one possible standard that might be part of the new normal that we talked about it previously in my video with Nitya Belani. Now, the question is, who's going to be paying for those tests? Some of you might think that will be the passengers, the airlines, or the governments. My opinion is that that is yet to be decided. Speaking about airports, I must mention that airports, especially small airports, have reported massive financial losses, and predictions are that if the next year, by the next year, in May or April, we do not see an increased amount of demand for passengers flying, and if we're still into the pandemic very deep, many other airports will have to go bankrupt. I believe that governments would decide that based on the parameters, which airport is needed for what, whether an airport is needed for logistic or whether an airport is needed for passenger movements, etc., etc. The predictions that we spoke about in the conference were that spring 2021 will bring to us many answers. In the conference, we also mentioned the Gulf carriers, Qatar Airways, Emirates Airlines, and Etihad Airways, and we all agreed that there is a slight difference over here. The governments of these countries are actually still strong in keeping the infrastructure and the aviation business running with its great financial support, but we all know that this cannot be done forever. At this particular moment, that is of course possible, but it is possible to a certain point in time. I must mention and extend over here my full support and regret to all the staff that have been redundant, with a hope that one day you, ladies and gentlemen, if you have been redundant, will be getting your jobs back. At the moment, almost every third or fourth person in the aviation industry has been redundant, and my sincerest hope is that this stays like that and it's not going to be increased. Now, we have talked about something super interesting that I've researched on, and it was interesting for me to learn and be informed about in the conference, and information that the European Union has started a huge hydrogen research fund, which is a hydrogen strategy for a climate neutral Europe that of course would be beneficial for the environment. Now, to quickly give you an idea of what is that, I didn't know, I researched about it, so I'm going to share with you. Now, hydrogen is enjoying a renewed and rapidly growing attention in Europe and around the world. Hydrogen can actually be used as a feedstock, as a fuel, or as or an energy carrier and storage. It has so many applications across the industry, the transport, the power and the building sector. Most importantly about hydrogen to know is that it doesn't emit CO2, and almost there's no air pollution when it's used. This offers a solution to decarbonize the industrial processes and the economic sectors, where reducing carbon emissions is both at the moment urgent, but actually it's also hard to achieve. All this makes hydrogen essential to support the European Union's commitment to reach a carbon neutrality by 2050, and for the global effort to implement that Paris Agreement while working towards zero pollution. And in accordance with this, what I would like to mention is the information that Airbus has given. They have actually introduced the first hydrogen aircraft, and Airbus has said that they should be releasing it, and that new aircraft, hydrogen aircraft, will be up flying by 2030. According to the experts, this time during this crisis can actually make an acceleration to this process, because now you're most probably asking yourself, what does the current situation with COVID-19 has to do with the studies about the hydrogen? As I have mentioned earlier, this time is actually an opportunity for whatever technology to be incorporated into the existing or a new one, depending on the development phase, in order to get out of this situation as an aviation industry stronger and more independent. Now, options like this are one, and I have mentioned that there are actually things that we should be investigating first. What I also would like to mention is the research, irrespective which phase is the corona crisis now. It is always vital, because the aim of the industry is definitely staying ahead. This time, again, I'm mentioning, are extremely difficult, and this research support is something that simply we must look forward, we must look beyond, and this current crisis from COVID-19 is actually something we should look at as sanitary crisis. These kind of crises can happen again and again, especially if we don't make sure that we reduce the impact of the human activity to the environment. What I also want to say and mention is that if we do not plan with a longer perspective into really rendering our transport in general into something that is more sustainable, we would start running behind from crisis to the next crisis, trying to solve current issues without really developing new ways moving forward, without really developing perspectives and strategies for the future. Now, the question that you are asking yourself and myself as well, when and how will the aviation industry recover? The question that we have discussed, and I find it out very useful, is that do we want to go back before Corona happened, or is this a moment to rethink the business modules that are there so far and think how to develop a better and a future version and a path with lots of ways to support that vision? Looking at the past and what has happened to previous crises in terms of understanding the connections and in the interrelation with the dynamics, we should look at what has caused the various crises and what has really been helpful back in those crises. Which corporations and what actually have helped to overcome those crises. This is what we can look at and learn from the past. These hard times that aviation industry is facing should be used for creating new modules and new perspectives based on the constant researches, based on comparisons, on trials, on implementation, etc., etc. What we also have to mention, and we also know very well, is that the passengers, us, you, me, we simply don't fly as we used to fly. Many of us are actually afraid to catch the virus. We have various reasons for that. There are travel restrictions, there are the government quarantines, and we all fall into some category and we all have a reason why we don't fly. And the other information which I have mentioned earlier in this video is that a vaccination is coming very soon. Will I get a vaccination? Will my family be vaccinated? Honestly, I can't answer that question now. But what I can say is that once that vaccine is out and is out for use, as earlier I have mentioned, spring next year, 2021, we should be having more data available and share whether we have a progress on getting out of this pandemic and how things are actually looking like. And forgot to mention also the antigen rapid test. Will that procedure be fully implemented? Also, we don't know. How all will affect the demand for flying, the purpose for traveling. I think an exact number and a true prediction cannot be done. And we also agreed on that during the conference. We agreed that a regaining of trust of the aviation industry towards the society is something that is much needed. We are looking at happening every single day. Therefore, looking forward to address this matter somewhere in spring next year. But until then, I'm very fully committed to my aviation management studies, and I constantly research on this subject. Therefore, in order to stay tuned with everything that I publish, press the subscribe button and the notification button over here. We will be talking about COVID-19 and the aviation industry furthermore. I want to thank you for watching this video. Share your thoughts and your comments below. I would be happy to read your opinion and your thinking about the COVID-19 crisis and the aviation industry. Bye bye and have a nice day.